So I was listening, of course, I was listening to a lot of news about that budget thing in Washington this week. And I'm really surprised with how many different opinions there are in the Republican side of things, and how they all want different things, and how they're really, in some cases, really quite vehement in their desires, and they're really powerful and forceful. And anyway, I was listening to a guy, Chip Roy. I think he's from Texas, and he was bashing his Republican colleagues because they weren't going to cut. They weren't going to cut anything. That they were going to spend more money. And his point is, we can't be spending this money. We can't be spending that money. It's not good to spend money. We're spending money we don't have. We're increasing the debt. And he did say, and I have to admire him for this. I was elected to cut the deficit. I was elected to, I don't know if he was elected to cut the budget, to cut the debt, but, I was elected to cut the deficit, to get spending under control. And we're not doing that. He said, we're not doing that at all. We've been here this long, and all we've done is spend more. So I was like, I'll tell you what, I'm not a big Chip Roy fan, but I'm going to give him credit for saying, okay, this is what I said I was doing, and I ain't getting it done. This is what you said you were going to do, and we ain't getting it done. Anyhow, I was thinking about his talk, and I was thinking about Belle of the Ranch. Belle of the Ranch did a video, I think it was this past week, and she was talking about how you can't run government like a business. We talked about it a little bit on Wednesday. You can't run government like a business. It's not how it's operated. Businesses operate for profit. Governments don't operate for profit. And if you run a government the way you run a business, then your customer, well, eventually you've got to give your customer less for more in order to maximize your profits. So it doesn't work that way. And, so the Chip Roy thing, well, we got to cut. As I was thinking about Belle's talk, and as I was thinking about, Congressional Representative Roy and his desire to cut, I thought, okay, who is it that you serve? Who is it that you serve? Who do you serve as a congressional representative? Who do you serve? You say, well, the American people, right? It's not the nation, right? The nation is, as a matter of fact, the nation is the collection of the people. It's not the body of land within specific lines drawn in the sand. That's not the nation. It's not the government, right? The government is not the nation. The people are the nation. Without the people, there is no nation. Without the people, there's no reason for government. So a government's responsibility is to take care of the needs of the people, to provide for the people, to make sure that the people have what they need to be prosperous, to make sure that the people have what they need to survive. And I know, I can almost just picture having a conversation with my dad about this. My dad's a small business person. He's a large man, but he's he owns a small business. Brilliant guy. But I can almost picture, well, you've got to, if you don't protect the nation, if you don't protect the budget, if you don't watch your spending, if you don't, then you're not going to have it. That's not how it works either. Right? If my goal is to protect the people, if my goal is to take care of the people, if my goal is to provide for the people, then it's not about how much I spend, it's where I spend it. It's about controlling my spending. It's about where do I get the revenue. If my job is to take care of the people of the nation, then I may have to increase my revenues instead of reducing my expenses. How do you increase your revenues as government? I don't know. Maybe you could tax billionaires. like $1 billion a day for every day they spend trying to push around congressional representatives or senators. It's interesting to me how often I will find similarities between things like government and business and the church. See, that's an argument that I have had often with others and with myself. Is the church a business or something else? Because we get bills. And if I don't pay my bills, we ain't going to be open. If I don't pay my bills, we're not going to have heat. If I don't pay my bills, we're not going to have electricity. If I don't pay my bills, we're not going to have insurance. But if we don't have insurance, we're not allowed to be open, right? If I don't pay my bills, bad things happen. If I don't pay my bills, the same things that happen to businesses who don't pay their bills will happen to me. The church is in this really interesting dynamic. We have to pay our bills or we're done for. And yet, we're not a business. We don't exist for a profit. We don't. We do not exist for a profit. But those bills that we get, force us to focus in the wrong ways. They force us to focus on the wrong things. Now, years ago, when I was in seminary, I read an article and I tried to look for it and I just couldn't find it. But it was part of my my thesis, which was which came down to success in rural ministries. How do you achieve success in rural ministries? What does it look like? But one of the articles that I read for that was about the purpose of church. And what the article said was, if you are so focused on keeping the doors open of your church, if you're so focused on keeping the doors open, keeping this as a place where people can go, it's time to close the doors because you're focusing on the wrong things. If you're focused on keeping your building open, it's time to close it because you've lost your purpose. You've lost your way. You're focusing on the wrong things. If your big concern is how do you pay your bills, as church, if your big concern is how do you pay your bills, knowing full well that not paying your bills will close you down, it is time to close down anyway because it's not your focus. You've lost your purpose. See, the church exists for people who are not yet members. William Temple said that years ago, I think back in the 30s or 40s. William Temple, he was an Archbishop of Canterbury, he said, the church is the only organization in the world that exists for the sake of those people who are not yet members. We exist to take care of people outside of our church. We exist to provide for them. We exist to help them in their needs. We exist to heal. We exist to feed. We exist to share. We exist to comfort. We exist to challenge. We exist for so many reasons. But our focus isn't supposed to be on us. Our focus, the reason we exist, is not to be open. Our reason to exist is not to save the building. Our reason to exist is not to have heat or electricity. Our reason to exist is not to keep the doors open. The government doesn't exist as a business. The government doesn't exist to keep itself flush. It doesn't exist to keep itself. The government doesn't exist to provide for itself, to maintain itself. The government exists for the sake of the people. And like the church, it mustn't ever forget its raison d'être. It mustn't ever forget why it is here, its purpose. Because if it does, it'll, like the church, its attention will be turned inwards. Its focus will be on the wrong things. It will learn to serve the wrong master. And then there'll be no reason for it anymore. That even though it could be running like a top, be spinning like a top, and everything is perfect, and everything is fine, and everything is balanced, and all the bills are paid, and everything is cool and copacetic, but you failed to do the things you were actually put here to do. So what's the point? Amen.